You know, participation will cost you a lot. This is where priesthood becomes interesting. I said you quoted the scripture from Psalm 23. Psalm 24 verse 3. It says, who shall stand in the hill of the Lord? Who shall ascend his holy mountains? Say him that is of a pure hand. Participation has requirements. That is of a pure heart, who has not lifted up his soul in vanity, nor sworn deceitfully. So before you participate, they will check you. They will probe you. They will scrutinize you. And they will sanctify you. He said, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord, and his train filled the temple. Before he entered the court, they say, wait. They say, one of the seraphims took the coals and touched his tongue. And they said, now your iniquity is purged. You can now participate. The reason the church is not doing what she ought to do is because people are going to learn things from textbook and coming to speak on behalf of spirits. We removed priesthood and we substituted it with Bible school. There's nothing wrong with Bible school. But if you only read things from books and you want to come and represent a spirit by reading a book, you are a joker. It's a holy men of God spake as they were carried by the Spirit of God. So what they were saying were the things they represented. Our generation removed the labor of priesthood and we replaced it with excitement in church. And so churches in those days that people will come and drill in prayer until they touch something. Now when you come to church, they are acting drama. Even in vigil, a vigil now will start from 10 p.m. because they need to waste the first 4 hours. If you start by 6, nobody will come. Meanwhile, the elders of old started vigil from 6 to 6. When you come by 5 minutes past 6, they're already praying. And they will first of all pray till 12 midnight. Then they will start exhortation. When they teach the word of God, then they will pray till morning. We now start vigil by 10. And from 10 to 12 is high praise. People are dancing and carrying chairs up. Now, there's nothing wrong in praising God. Don't get me wrong. You know, I told you about praising in the beginning. But the sound you are hearing, if you are hearing it faintly, you will think it's a club. Because all the beats are the same beats from the club. We are so connected to the club that even when we are in church, we don't want to miss the club. So we had to download the club beat into church. And so everybody is dancing. They are dancing till 12. The moment it's 12, they say, let us pray. Prayer is 10 minutes. In that 10 minutes, they now notice people are already dozing off. They quickly replace it with another dance. They dance again for 1 hour. And then when people are excited, they say, let's share a charge. Somebody will now come out for 5 minutes as if it's in a rush and read 3 verses quickly. As he read the verses very quickly, he noticed people are dozing off. They say, wait, there's drama, there's drama. We will now add drama. By 3 o'clock, God's servant will now come out and share few messages, prophesy, and then we'll start dancing again. Crusade now. Night vigil will finish by 4. People will now sleep in church till 6 because they can't go home. Why didn't they pray from 4 to 6? Because they can't pray that prayer. Better end that night vigil by 4. So vigil will end by 4. Nowadays there are some vigils that is even 12 to 3. That's not vigil, that's night prayer. There is no energy to participate because it takes so much to stand. It takes much to stand. There has to be stamina. There has to be tenacity. There is a requirement of purity before you can participate with spirits that are immortal. But you see, priesthood is dying. And because priesthood is dying, the devil is gaining ground. Even our culture and traditions that uphold morals are being uprooted. And if a man comes into the kingdom of God, the sign that is in the kingdom of God is the authority that he exercises. Because kingdom is a game of authority. If you don't have authority, you will be marginalized. You will bear a title, but the title will become a reproach to you. And so in order not just to bear titles, but to carry mantles that give expression to the glory of our God, people must understand what priesthood entails. And so the reason God created us to be priests and kings is because he wants us to wield the authority that is required in order to experience the full weight of his kingdom. And so I began by showing us from Genesis how that when God created man, he put him in the garden and told him to dress it and to keep it. And I said that word dress is priesthood. That means tidy it up. And you cannot tidy it up except as you keep it in the presence. Because it's the presence of God that tidies up God's environment. It is the presence of God that transforms God's environment. And so when he said to dress, he was talking about a specific kind of spiritual operation that entails man servicing the present, servicing himself and his environment with the presence. And when he said to keep it, he was talking about a defense mechanism that requires authority. And that's where kingship comes in. But unfortunately, the man fell. And when the man fell, he could no longer exercise his dominion mandate, and his priesthood was truncated because he was driven from the face of God. But we saw again that the only time God decided to visit the earth again was when altars were raised by men. And so in Genesis chapter 4 verse 26, the Bible said, in the days of Enosh, it said men began to call upon the name of the Lord. So God began another project. That project is what culminated in the calling of Abraham. Get thee out of thy country. Get thee out of thy kindred. Get thee out of thy father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make of thee a great nation. And the moment Abraham stepped out, in Genesis 12 verse 6 and 7, we saw that Abraham erected altars. In Genesis 13 verse 18, when Abraham relocated, we saw that Abraham erected altars. That means Abraham understood the mechanism for establishing dominion on the face of the earth. The way to establish dominion on the face of the earth is through the technology of priesthood and altars. And so the greatest heritage Abraham left for his children were blessings and altars. Before he departed, he blessed them. And what he taught them was the way of altars. Because the devil doesn't want anything that can affect his agenda. So as he has penetrated church, he's even penetrating culture. So in Africa now, beauty is nakedness. At least those days, you can't even be naked because of culture. But even the moral values of culture are being uprooted. Because when priesthood is gone, the devil will have a field day. When the priesthood is substituted, the white beasts are summoned to come and take over. And so we must train people again to learn how to participate. Take 15 people, take 30 people, go for a retreat somewhere where there's no keyboard. Pray in tongues with them for 5 hours. Stop, ask them, what did you see? What did you hear? You have not heard anything. Pray again for another 5 hours. Stop, ask them, what did you see? What did you hear? They didn't hear anything. Give them 15 minutes break. Take something light, come back. Pray again for 5 hours. Pray with them until their ears open and their eyes can see. That is Christianity. Christianity is not story, it's not tales, it's not excitement, it's to represent the Spirit of God. Because priesthood is the ability to commune with God until you can represent him. And priesthood is also the ability to, by the Spirit of God, change things in your realm. And you don't change things by shouting and singing. You change things by power. It may not mean much to you until you are married. The women who are married here, they understand. A woman can be excited from morning to evening if she dresses and comes out and the husband just looks at her and says, my God, what a beauty. She will just become shy. Now, if the husband wants to go deeper, as she's shy, he will now begin to analyze her from her eyelashes. He will analyze the eyelashes, analyze the skin color, analyze the fingernails, analyze the hairdo, and then the garment she's wearing. Because of that analysis, the next day, that woman will take her bath by 5 a.m. because she wants to hear it again. She wants to hear. And if the man keeps saying it, the man will be in trouble because all her money will finish in her wardrobe. Because she will do anything to keep hearing what the man is saying. Now, when you begin to behold God and marvel at his glory, there is something he does to the heart of God that is so deep. And so I said, when people begin to grow in priesthood, one of the things they do is that they search and seek God just to look upon him. It's like they are missing God so much that they are willing to leave the world, the noisy world, and go to that secret place just to wait, either to hear him or to see him. And they can look upon him forever and ever. They will not be satisfied. If your heart begins to fine-tune into that texture, it means you are beginning to grow in priesthood. Because everything a man loves, he beholds. That's why men labor to get glorious things, so that you can look at it. Most of us who labor to dress well and to wear a lot of ornaments. If people no longer appreciate them, we will dump them. That means 90% of what we wear, we don't wear because we like them. We're actually wearing them because people like them and they appreciate them. You will not start regretting why you wasted that money. And so every being wants to be beheld. And so one thing priests do is that they behold God and appreciate his beauty, appreciate his glory, and appreciate his excellence. You know, at this point, you are not even talking much. You are just there because you are waiting for him. And the reason you are waiting is because you want to see him. You want to look upon him. He said they looked up to him and their faces were radiant and they were not ashamed. So there is an act of priesthood called beholding him. In 2 Corinthians 3:18, he said, we all with open faces beholding as in a glass the image of the Lord, we are changed. Now, when you begin to behold God, what God does is that thing you admire so much, he now puts it on you so that you begin to represent him. So the beauty of man is tied to the quality of their beholding, because you reflect what you behold. And so one thing priests do is that they behold God until they become like him, that I may behold him, that I may look upon him, that I may gaze at him. If there is a hunger in your spirit strong enough to make you separate yourself just to go look upon him or to hear him, it means you are a high-ranking priest in the spirit. When you want to distinguish between babes and the mature, find out what takes them to God's presence. When the babe comes to God's presence, he has a need. When the need is over, he goes. But when you find a priest, he doesn't go there because he has a need. He wants to see something. He wants to hear something. The presence of God, he's addicted to the presence of God like marijuana. He will keep looking and he never gets satisfied, because the more he sees, the more he wants to see. God becomes like an endless beauty, fountain of beauty that he never gets exhausted seeing. He will look upon him and look upon him yet again. It's called priesthood. Priesthood is the act of beholding God, because as you are beholding God, God is pouring himself into you. So the first dimension of priesthood requires you acknowledging and glorifying him. The second dimension of priesthood requires you appreciating him, loving him, honoring him, and just marveling at him. It's a sign that God is your priority. It's a sign that God is your all. It's a sign that God is the biggest thing of value in your life. You will not understand how value is judged until you have something worthwhile. The day they give you a Lamborghini, you will not be able to sleep. You wake up at 12 midnight and park the curtain and look whether it's still packed. You that used to wake up by 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. because there's a Lamborghini in the compound, by 5:30 you want to take a walk and you are looking at the car. You check the silencer, the exhaust, you look at the tires. These tires are big. Every day you are seeing new things. Sometimes you just go and sit inside the car, not because you are going anywhere. You on it, and when the engine is steaming, you are looking at the speedometer. You are touching some things, the wood they use here. You are just touching, you are just looking, because your affection is tied there. And so in priesthood, the way God judges your affection is what you will do just to look upon him. And so priests who are actually practicing the art of priesthood, one thing they do is to look upon God. They can be there for 3 days just to hear a whisper. And the moment they see or hear God, their heart is full of joy. That joy, you can't take it from them. Things may be wrong, but they are happy. And you are wondering, why are you excited in the midst of chaos? Because they have something you can't take from them. You can take money from them. You can take car from them. But this one, you can't take it. It's in their spirit. And that's when you become like Mount Zion that cannot be moved, because you are a beholder of God. The Bible spoke concerning Moses. It said the reason he was able to abandon Egypt was because he saw him that was invincible. And so when you find a man always going to the place of prayer, it's because of what he's seeing and hearing. It's not because of the answers he's getting necessarily. Yes, he will get answers, but even in the season where there are no answers, he keeps going there, because he just wants to see God. He wants to touch God. Nothing grants him fulfillment like touching God. That's a priest. If you want to rise as a priest, you must love and master the art of beholding. His power. And so before we enter the dynamics of legislation, you have to begin to drill your spirit. See, leave the shouting first. Drill your spirit. Be able to quieten your soul before God until you can pick something from the realm of God. That's when you can be sure that even the salvation you are talking about is real. Because you have walked through time all your life. Everything you know about God is a story somebody told you. That means you are going into eternity with uncertainty. You don't know this your God is true, because you've never picked anything from him. What is the difference between you and the dead religion? because their God is dead. You claim your God is alive. You've never heard anything from him. You've never interacted with anything from his realm. And then you are walking. That's why when the devil comes, the first thing that comes out of you is fear. Because you are not sure if what you believe is true. And so we need to come to that point where we surrender to the government of the presence. And number one, this God, we accept everything he says he is, and we honor him for it. Number two, we wait upon him and insist that we too must see his reality. Number three, we insist that we wait until he speaks to us. And when he speaks to us, we want to participate in his program. This thing you say you are doing in Kenya, I want to participate in it. I don't just want to come to church and go back. What are you saying about Kenya that everybody is claiming and talking about? How come these things are a story to me? What are you doing? I want to participate. So that you don't just join the bandwagon and say God is doing something. What is God doing? Everybody stands up, they say we are in the last day, God is doing something. What is God doing? Who told you? How are you sure that God is doing something? And if God is doing something, what role are you going to play in it? These are the things that should burden us, because until we get there, we are not part of God's program. And if we are not part of God's program, we are not priests and we are not kings. Our lives will just be a function of receiving the leftovers that those who are participating in the kingdom are dropping by. And so you are receiving healings and impartation. Whereas the man who is coming to impart you is standing before God every day. It is the overflow of what runs out of him that he pours on you in the service. Thank God for that impartation. But when will you also appear on the mountain and say, the God who encountered this man, that he will blow and people will fall? The God who encountered this man, that he will touch cancer and cancer will die. When will I meet that God? Thank God for the healing, but when will I walk in divine health? Thank God for the impartation, but when will I see this God for my own self? These are the burdens of priests. Imagine you are in a family and every day your elder brother comes and says, Daddy said take 2,000. Tomorrow he comes, say Daddy said take food. Tomorrow he comes, he said Daddy said take transport to school. What day will I see Daddy? Why is it that you are the one always seeing Daddy to tell me what Daddy is saying? Me too, I want to hear what Daddy is saying. I'm not a stranger. I'm not a visitor. I'm also born into the family. Because I'm not only interested in what Daddy is giving. Who is Daddy? Where is Daddy? I want to see Daddy. That's where your journey in Christianity begins. And these are the molecules of priesthood. This is why priesthood is so vital and it cannot be taken out of the scene. In fact, not only Abraham's sons understood the way of altars, even the sons of the concubines also knew the way of altars. Balaam, I will go far. I will go far. I'm doing a recap, but if I digress and enter some things will open up. But you see, the descendants of Abraham that littered on the face of the earth, they had some special kind of intelligence that they didn't read from a book. For example, when Moses ran away from Egypt and went to dwell with Jethro, we saw that Jethro began to teach Moses the way of altars. It was because of the tutelage of Jethro that Moses discovered Horeb. Because Jethro was the one who told Moses that on the mount of Horeb, a spirit appears. That was why Moses will feed the sheep and still go to the backside of the wilderness. It was on one of such occasions that the Spirit of the Lord appeared to Moses. And to prove that Jethro was Moses' teacher, when Moses left and carried the children of Israel across the Red Sea, Jethro came to meet him again to counsel him on spiritual division of labor. When God came, God corroborated Jethro's counsel and told Moses, you will not just divide them, but I will take your spirit and put upon them. So Jethro was instrumental in the training of Moses. It was Jethro that taught Moses the art of priesthood. And if you trace Jethro's lineage, Jethro is one of the sons of Keturah. He was a Midianite. And those were the children of Abraham. And remember, the Bible said in Genesis 18 verse 19, he said, I know Abraham my servant. He will teach his children the ways of God and command them to walk therein. And so the ways of God that Abraham taught his children, including the sons of the concubine, was the way of priesthood. So everybody that came out of Abraham understood priesthood and lived by priesthood. That was what gave them the edge that they had in life, because this world is regulated by spirits. And as we go further tonight, we will see it, that systems and nations are regulated by spirits. If spirits are withdrawn, men will lack the intelligence to run systems. Men were created to depend on spirits in order to carry out their engagements. Our wisdom is tied to the spirit we are connected to. Everything you read in a book were precipitates of spiritual knowledge that came from spirit beings. They only documented them. It is not a man that walketh to order his steps. Man was not created with that level of intelligence to dictate the outcome of his destiny. He will always depend on spirit to show him what he should do. Because spirits are the actual actors in existence. We are only here to give expression to their will and to their dictates. That is why the summary of a man's life is the degree to which he gives expression to the will of God. The summary of a man's life is not how much he has or how old he lived. The summary of a man's life is the degree to which he stewarded the will of God in the time of his existence. And so God created us as priests from Genesis through to the life of Abraham until the children of Israel went into captivity. And in Exodus 19 verse 4 to 6, God showed up and began to speak to Moses. And he said, see how by a mighty hand I delivered you from Egypt. You see, I didn't deliver you just to show my power. I don't need to show my power. All things were created by me. The first introduction of God is almighty. He was first of all revealed as the possessor of all powers. So God is not trying to show anybody that is powerful. In him we live, in him we move, and in him we have our being. The reason I took you out of Egypt was because I had an agenda. The agenda I have is to create a kingdom of priests and kings. And so I want you to teach the children of Israel laws, ordinances, charges, all that comes from me, so that they will know how to become priests and kings. And then you think that's an Old Testament phenomenon until Peter showed up in 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 9, and he said, you are a chosen generation. You are a royal priesthood. That means without priesthood, we can never have a relationship with God. The weight of our relationship with God is tied to the depth of our priesthood. And so when you find two believers walking, the degree to which they can mirror God's purpose is the depth of their priesthood. It's not just because they are born again. The reason one believer speaks and God acts, and another speaks and it looks like God is asleep, is because of their priesthood. When your priesthood is awakened, the operations of God in your life will be awakened as well. He said God is able to do exceeding abundantly above all you can ask or think, according to the power at work on your inside. There is a technology that awakens that power. That technology is called priesthood. And so all through scripture, you will discover that one agenda God had in his heart was to raise kings and priests. So if you are not yet a priest, if you are not yet a king, look around and tell yourself, where have I been? Because existence actually begins from the day you become a priest and a king. And there are people who will live until they are 80 and they will never understand priesthood. They will never understand kingship. They will just breathe oxygen, pass through time and go. And they won't know what God is doing in a generation. That is not life. That is a waste. And so in this conference, we want to understand what priesthood entails. We have seen that what God has in mind is to raise priests and to raise kings. Because in the kingdom of God, only priests and kings exist there. This is why you will find 10,000 people line up for one person to pray for them. That means that one person praying for them is the one living in the kingdom. Because he's the one who understands the technology of the kingdom. He's the one living from the advantages of the kingdom. He's the one enjoying the benefits of the kingdom. It's just like your government today. There are those who are active participators in the government. They will tell you what will happen tomorrow. If you like, believe it. If you like, don't. It will happen. There are things bigger than impartations. There are certain things that are practiced. You practice your way into those realities, because it will take a daily exercise for you to come into full stature of their operation. Many times when we come for meetings like this, people want to touch you. They want you to prophesy over them, lay hands on them. It will bring you a dimension, but that dimension will have a consecration. If you don't have that consecration, the dimension will lift. The reason I started laboring in the spirit is because I discovered every dimension rests on a consecration. And so when you are imparted, you will enjoy it for a season, but the dimension will begin to call on the consecration that it rests upon. If you cannot provide the sacrifice of that consecration, the dimension will go back. I traveled once upon a time to see a great apostle called Randy Clark, and he laid hands on me, saying, you will walk in the glory realm. I will pray for people. I didn't have faith. People were being healed. Terminal diseases. I said, it's time to start the global healing ministry. If this thing is this easy, I now started condemning most of the preachers. Is this how simple this thing is that they made it difficult for us? No wonder. Thank God. After 2 weeks, the impartation began to demand fasting. The impartation began to demand long hours prayers. And I couldn't pray like that. Long hours prayer. Sometimes in the night, I will sense like praying. I will just be awake. And I didn't want to pray. When I struggled with the consecration and I didn't keep it, after a while, I went back to status quo. Because in every dimension rests on the consecration. And so one of the things that will make you a priest is to pay the price of beholding. When you see somebody coming with glory and excellence, if you like, go and buy the same suit he wears. Your glory level will be different. Because that glory is beyond the suit. The glory is what has rubbed off because of his beholding. A man can wear a suit, pull it and give you. You will wear that suit the next day, you will look like a caricature. Meanwhile, when you saw the suit on him, you wanted to die. You have the portrait in your office. But when you wore the same suit, you now discover there is something more than the suit that he's wearing. It's the glory of God. And that glory comes only if you behold. This is the secret of priest. And this is why when priests show up, things happen. Things don't happen just because they spoke in a certain way. You can come to a place and shout. When you finish shouting, they will slap you. And then you will know that you need much glory beyond a deep voice. It's called beholding. The third thing priests do is to wait. Waiting is an acknowledgement of the fact that you know he's a king. I don't want to read scriptures. There are many scriptures I would have read, but it will take our time. When Moses was called up by God and he climbed up the mountain, Moses climbed the mountain, the glory of God descended, God was not there. Moses waited for 8 days before God showed up, but Moses didn't go away. Because Moses acknowledged that he is the king, he is the servant. God is the king, I am the servant. So my job is to wait upon him. That act of waiting is called worship. And it is on the strength of that waiting that God will give to you with strength. The Bible said, they that wait upon the Lord, he said they mount up with wings like the eagles. So when a man wants to mount up with wings, he needs to learn the art of waiting. There are many people who wants to fly, but they don't know the technology of flying. You don't fly by jumping, you fly by waiting. There is a wing that you have that will never be activated until you learn how to wait in God's presence. And so when you see things happening with people, don't copy them. You will have accident. Don't copy them, you will die. Find out what they are doing. When you do it, the same thing will begin to happen naturally. The moment you begin to struggle, it means your flesh is what is sponsoring it. But when you wait, God will carry you. And so men who have strength that never deplete, they understand something about priesthood. And what they understand about priesthood is the art of waiting. Our generation is a hasty generation. People can speak in tongues for 10 hours so that they too will have the badge that they have also spoken in tongues for 10 hours. But they're actually not interested in God. Your prayer can mean many things, but your waiting means one thing. Your waiting means only God's presence counts. So when you are done waiting, sometimes God will see whether you wait for him. When you are done outlining what you need, God will see whether he is the one you are looking for. He said unto Abraham, be careful to note that I am your shield and your exceeding great reward. If you don't wait for me, every other thing will vanish. I am the answer you are looking for. And so when you want to find somebody who practices priesthood, one thing he does is that he makes sure that he encounters God from time to time. And the way he engenders it is by waiting. When he's done praying for 7 hours and his spirit becomes quiet, he still waits. Because the prayer is not complete until God shows up. Because prayer is not a monologue, it's a dialogue. When you are done talking, wait for God to come and talk. Because if God have not spoken, you have not prayed. You only talk to God. Are we together? And so priesthood entails waiting on the Lord. And I assure you, this is one thing that is difficult for us to do. We can wait before a television. We can wait before a football match. We can wait before a program. I remember the period where demons sanitized Africa with some programs called Telemundo. Telemundo is a semi-pornography. And then you will see young ladies waiting for every evening. They are waiting. The moment is 6 o'clock. They are on the front of the TV. They will check whether they've started. They will check. They will check. You go to certain houses, 3 ladies are waiting. If the program is not yet on, they will start discussing about what happened yesterday. And they'll start predicting what will happen today. All of that, they are gingering themselves to wait. Because of the hunger they have for the world system. But when it has to do with God, wait for 10 minutes, everybody is dozing off. Because there's no passion for God. There's no hunger for God. And so when God wants to see how much of himself he can commit to you, he will test your patience or waiting. Because the degree of your waiting is what determines how much of God you can handle. If you cannot wait long enough, he cannot give you much of himself. If you have the tenacity to wait, God can give you all of himself. Men who carry God so much, they have a lot of patience in God's presence. And so God now is sure that it is him they are looking for, not what he has to offer. Because those who need what God has, God can easily give it to them to go. Hope you remember when Abraham was settling his children, the Bible said he gave gifts to the sons of Keturah, but to Isaac he gave the promise. God can give you the things you are looking for, but you will never have God. The men who have God are the men who are passionate about God and God only. And the proof that you are passionate about God is not to preach about him, is the degree to which you can wait for him. If God doesn't show up in 2 weeks, do you have the stamina to wait? If God doesn't show up in 1 year, do you have the stamina to wait? If God does not show up in 2 years, do you have the stamina to wait? I know you are supposed to start ministry, but what if God has not given go ahead? Can you wait for 5 years? If you can't wait for 5 years, it means that ministry is not God sending you. You are looking for a system to merchandise people, and you want something that you can put the logo of God on. That is not God. And that's why you see many people run into accidents in destiny, because they didn't wait for God. They were too ambitious to do something, and God became a delay. And as far as they are concerned, even God cannot delay them. And so they will move ahead. God will meet them on the road. It's Satan that will meet you first, because Satan always comes first. He said, the thief cometh not but for to kill, to steal, and to destroy, but I am come. Satan is the one that comes first, so you better wait for God. How many of you have met Satan? Don't worry, it may not appear. The circumstances will show. Wait on God so you don't meet Satan by accident. But when you have waited, you have stamina. When Satan is running, you are flying. And whatever he does will turn to your advantage. When you enter those dimensions, then God begins to commit things to you. That's where litigation and legislation begins from. And we say in litigation and legislation, you are either an intercessor, or you are a gatekeeper, or you are a watcher. A watcher is one who sees to warn the church. A gatekeeper is one who defends the integrity of God and keeps the gate. And an intercessor is one who speaks to God on behalf of the people. You must fall into one of these categories to be relevant in God's agenda. If you are not in any of this category, my brother, my sister, you are not part of God's agenda. You don't become a part of God's agenda because you belong to a church. You become a part of God's agenda because there's a responsibility God has committed to you. There are those who are seeing and are telling the church what God is saying. There are those who are standing at the gate to defend the integrity of God, and there are those who are talking to God about what is happening so that God can act on behalf of the church. You must fall into one of these categories. This is what Christianity is about, that you are a part and a parcel of God's program. But there are few people who are participating in God's program. Church is full, participators are empty. Full church, few participators. So there can be no legislation, there can be no litigation. The reason these things are very important is because if they don't happen, God's agenda will be truncated. And if they begin to happen, the agenda of the devil will be truncated. Now that I have been able to show you the dimensions of priesthood, let me show you the agenda of the devil and how priesthood stops it. Because this is where the weight of litigation and legislation actually is. The ability to propagate laws that enforces God's will and truncates the will of the devil, and the ability to take advantage of already established laws to halt what the devil is doing, either in the lives of individuals, in the lives of families, in systems, and in territories. It's not just gathering in church to pray. It's what the prayer is doing. That is what the litigation is all about. That when we pray, what is the outcome of the prayer? But before you can pray those prayers, you need to know what to do to be able to pray those prayers. And that's what I've told you just now. Honoring him and ministering to him, beholding him, waiting upon him, and participating in his realm. Because it's about your own safety. The energy you are emitting in the spirit is a language. A warlock can see it. If a warlock sees you, he can tell where you are coming from. He can tell what you want to do. He can tell who you are. He can read your energy and discern your personality. How many of you have watched Melly? That's how cities are born. You need the intelligence of a warlock to build a city. And so what the warlocks and the sages do is that they create spiritual quadrants of weaknesses that are in the men of those territories. Some are full of bitterness, some are full of pride, some are full of lust, some are full of anger. When those quadrants are completed, then the demonic princes will begin to come in. When the princes come in, Some will sit on the prophetic corrupt people. Some will sit on the proud corrupt people. Some will sit on those who are full of lust. When they dominate them, they now have territorial legality. You can't just come and say get out. No, it won't work. The reason is because the will of these men that they have enslaved gives them legality to be in those systems. And so when you come into the government, you will find legalities that princes have to sit in those governments. If you come into families, you will find legalities that princes have to sit there. It will take more than doctrine for things to change. You can preach from morning till night. Those princes will not go. Did you not read about Peter? In Luke 22 verse 31, Jesus is the living word of God. He was with Peter. Yet, he said, Simon, Simon, Satan desires to have you. That means there are things that the word alone cannot do. Because the word was with Peter, yet Satan desired to have him. The word had to pray for Peter. He said, I have prayed for you. I am the word, but I have prayed for you. The problem the church has is that we are preaching dead logos to people that Satan has. We are preaching dead logos to people that are under the government of Satan. Somebody gossiped for 5 years and Satan has found a stronghold on that person. You now show up and say God is good. The living word was with Peter, but the living word had to pray for Peter. He said, I have prayed for you that your faith faileth not. He said, when thou art recovered, strengthen thy brethren. The word had to add priesthood in order to save Peter. In the garden of Gethsemane, Jesus went to pray and he told them, I am with you. I am the word. He said, but pray that you fall not into temptation. Do you see why many people have scriptures in their head, but they are slaves of spirits? Because even if the word is with you, if there's no priesthood, you will fall into temptation. I am the word, but pray. If you don't pray, you will fall into temptation. You can have all the Bible in your head, you will fall into temptation. Because the word made flesh was with people. The word made flesh counseled them to pray. What will keep you standing is what prayer does to my word that is in your spirit. And so where there is no priesthood, people become vulnerable because there is a program in the territory that has made them slaves already. A friend of mine relocated from one part of the country to another. He now discovered after 2 weeks that he started having lust. What is going on? He didn't know he came into a web. That there are territorial spirits there that manipulate people that have his kind of frequency because he is prophetic. And so the moment he came and they picked the radar of the prophetic, they began to woo him with the energy of the environment. And he discovered after 2 weeks, he started feeling lonely. He now began to look for girls to make friends with. And he made friends with a girl. In fact, they had planned for the girl to visit. Because they've talked into, people have sex talking on phone. They have talked into sex on phone already. So they needed to consummate it in his house. But God showed mercy. People were praying for him. And so when the lady came, both of them prepared for what should happen to happen. Somebody now came to visit that day and refused to go. As the lady came in, they started talking, about to fall into the grave. He said, I saw a young man that is void of understanding. He said, he has gone the way of the strange woman. And he said, no one that goes that way returns. No one that takes that path returns. He was about to join in the path of no return. But prayers have been made. Prayers. And so somebody from nowhere came to the house and sat down and wouldn't go. That day God took advantage of his appetite for stories, and they kept talking stories. My friend was angry. He wanted to stab the brother, but the brother was his salvation. After a while, the weight of iniquity broke and he started weeping. When the lady left, he knelt down, confessed, and was rededicated. Prayer created another algorithm, a counter programming that diffused what the devil planned. Because the devil had everything in place. But when men pray, oh my God, when men pray, the power to shut darkness is activated. Sometimes you will be helpless, but prayer will help you. I was in a club. A pastor. I had the destiny of an apostle, but before I entered my calling, the devil had a program and manipulated my way into the club. And when I stood in the club, I had taken a bottle of Baron Devar, and I heard from the wall, the wages of sin is death. What gave the wall the power to speak was the prayer of my mother. He said, this one will serve you. Not one hair from his head will fall to the ground. So because of that prayer, even when I wanted to go the way of iniquity, I couldn't anymore, because I was a burnt offering. The one who had legitimate authority over me burnt me on the altar as a sacrifice to God. And so when I thought I was wise, when demons began to manipulate my prophetic radar, they couldn't take me too far, because those prayers, they can make stones to talk. Where are the men who know spiritual things? Where are the wise men of our generation? Where are the spiritual technocrats of our generation? This is why I cry on the altar. We can't preach like every other person. When a nation is bleeding, where are those who can stand and say, Lord, restore? Where are those who know what they should do to bring a nation to the feet of the cross? When Archbishop Benson Idahosa wanted to change the fortune of Benin City, the Lord gave him strange instructions. He said, at night, go around the city and go to a roundabout and pray there. When he did it for some days, the signal of what he was doing began to enter the cove. He wasn't talking to anybody. He was walking in the night to a roundabout to pray and prophesy. After 3 days, they picked the signal in the demonic cove. And the next time he came, he saw a pot and they butchered some strange meat that he doesn't know which animal it came from. They came to set a trap ahead of him, because they know what this man is doing if offsetting the balance. That means what is happening in the city, there is also a demonic watcher watching the program in the spirit. And so they are not moved. No matter the reforms you bring, they are not moved. They are only moved if somebody through priesthood is beginning to affect the program. Because the reason every young lady wants to be naked, even they don't know. The reason every government official wants to loot money and go to Dubai, even they don't know. It's a program. And so no matter the advice you give, it won't work until you go back to the foundation where those negative programs were written, and you begin to change it. If you start changing it, they will visit you. That's when you will know that you are doing business in the spirit. You are not doing business because you have a church and you are preaching. You are doing business because the spirit are aware of your activity. And the only activity the spirit are aware of are the activities on the altar. Ebenezer! And suddenly, the hand of God appeared. And the whole army moved back. Even the land that they took from Israel were retrieved. We cannot take the media until priests arise. We cannot take the government until priests arise. We cannot take the economy until priests arise. There are those from among us that God will send there, but the reason they will be effective is because we are praying. 4 years ago, the Lord told me, he said, I'm raising 3 categories of men. He said, some of them are apostolic missionaries. He said, that's where I'm putting you. You will travel around the nations and you will preach the gospel of the kingdom. He said, but be mindful to know that what God is doing has a triangle, is a triangle. By the time you are doing this, you can represent him. But in order to know where you are representing him, you need to know what the counter forces are doing. And so there are 3 categories of spirits and 3 categories of men you will contend with that I will talk to you about now, as I begin to talk about legislation and litigation. In Ephesians chapter 6 from verse 10. Give me scriptures now and see what the Bible says. He said, finally, my brethren. He taught them about salvation. When he was done teaching them, he now came to the real matter, where the will of God is defended and the will of the devil is truncated. And he said, finally, my brethren, he said, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. 3 things you will see here is, number 1, you can be a Christian. That's why I call them my brethren. But you may not be strong in the Lord. And you may not be strong in the power of his might. The man who is strong in the Lord is the man who has found his standing in God. It's not just the man who is born again. The man who is born again is his brethren. But the man who is strong in the Lord is the man who through priesthood has found a standing in God. That's a man who knows how to commune with God by ministering to him. That's a man who knows how to behold God and become like God. That's a man who knows how to wait upon the Lord until the voice of God comes to him. And that's a man who can participate in God's kingdom, so enact God's program. He said, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. I'm not talking power here, but I would have shown you something. The word power and might is the word iskus and kratos. The word iskus has to do with internal ability, capacity to stand. And the word kratos has to do with dynamic power that is born out of synergy. And so a man who is strong in the Lord, something happens to him. There is a power building up on his inside, and there is also a connection that man builds that gives him a strategic advantage in order to superintend over a territory. You notice that when Daniel was praying in Daniel chapter 9, the Bible said for 21 days Daniel knelt down, he didn't stand up. That is power. There is a power that is stronger than opening blind eyes. The real power in the kingdom is the ability to stand in God's presence. A man never ate any pleasant bread for 21 days. He stood at one spot. That's power. When you read the Old Testament, you will find men who really have power. There was a time God told Ezekiel, lie on one side for 390 days. And for 390 days, Ezekiel didn't move. He was lying on his right hand side. When he finished and you thought he would go on holiday, God said turn to the other side, and he lay there for 40 days. A man was interceding for 430 days. That man is stronger than who raises the dead, because a man who can bring his body under subjection is stronger than a man who can take a city. And so when he was saying be strong in the Lord, he was talking about an unleashing of a power that is on your inside. There's a power you have that can make you tarry in God's presence until you become like Mount Zion that cannot be moved. Did you notice what happened in the book of Ezekiel? After Ezekiel stayed there for a long time, Ezekiel didn't need to go out anymore. Anytime Ezekiel wants to go out, he will say the Spirit of the Lord took me by the lock of my hair and carried me. Ezekiel began to travel in the spirit, because he tamed his body to a point where his spirit could come out of his body at will. It's a dimension of power that makes a man becomes invincible. We are too distracted by the world system. We are in every birthday, we are in every marriage, we are in every program, we are on every website, wasting our time when strong men are building stamina on the altar. Be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. The word power of his might is synergy. Because see, when you become strong inside, you will notice that other entities that are like you will begin to come to you, because your friends are not only on earth, you can also make friends in the spirit. The reason you have not made friends in the spirit is because you have not stayed long enough. Stay on the altar for 3 months and see who will come to you. You will be shocked that while you are yet there, Gabriel will show up and say, I was given speed, I was made to fly swiftly to come and give you skill and understanding. Walk on the altar and see if you will not see Zacharias, if you will not see Isaiah, if you will not see Enoch. They have not gone anywhere. The Bible called them the spirit of judgment made perfect. That's what Kratos is talking about. When Daniel wanted to contend with the prince of Persia, he needed connections. And there are some connections that are not in the government house. There are some connections that are in the throne room. And suddenly a cherub will walk up to you and say, I came to help you. That's when you will know that our helpers are many. When you pursue men and it doesn't work, pursue spirits. Our helpers are not only natural. There is a place you will get to, you will be shocked that Catherine Kuhlman just passed to glory, and through priesthood you too can enter glory. You don't need to die to go to glory. You can go to glory through the altar. One can go through dying, another can go through the altar. And when synergy is achieved, something will change. Did you not read about Jesus? The Bible said in Matthew 17 verse 2, after 8 days he went to the mountain to pray, and he said suddenly there stood with him Moses and Elias. That is Kratos. When that man comes down, he can take a territory, because it's no longer one man. He is one man, but he's fighting with the strength of many. There are many prophets that walked in Kenya before now. When you pray and you don't know what to do, stay there. The prophet that conquered Kenya 20 years ago can still come back to tell you what he did to subdue the Kenya of 20 years ago. The power of his might. The earth is a distraction. This world is too noisy. See, sometimes you need to hear stories of witches and understand what they do. A witch can go on 100 days fast, not looking at the sun, to be able to meet a demon that has wickedness enough to afflict with death. A witch can be indoors for 8 months, and that witch may only drink water and maybe light food once in a day, and for 8 months that witch will not step out, because the witch is preparing herself to meet the devil, and a principality will come to that witch and empower that witch to be able to subdue system. And so that witch doesn't need religion. If he enters your office and you don't have the stature to dethrone her, the day she enters that office, that day you will leave that office, because of the weight of her priesthood. She came with 8 months of fasting. She came with 8 months of intercession. She came with 8 months of communion with demons. You are strolling about on Twitter and on Instagram, and you put your hands in the pocket. You want to fight a witch that has more education in the spirit than you. We have all the advantages, but we are illiterate in the spirit. And the reason is because we have not waited long enough, because we don't have the power of his might. There's no synergy. Do you know how many intercessors can bring down Kenya? Do you know how many angels must be deployed for Kenya to be won? What is the spiritual strategy? How many men are even aware? Before the Holy Ghost came down, they needed 120 intercessors. They knew, and so they gathered in the upper room. When the time was right, the Holy Ghost came down. How many intercessors are needed to take Kenya? How many angels are needed to trigger the revival in Kenya? How many hours of prayer is required? How many quorum is needed in the throne room? What is the weight of litigation required for Kenya to appear before God? You don't read that in the book. It is shown to you. We lack spiritual intelligence. Sit down. Sit down. I don't want to go high yet. He said, put on the whole armor of God, wherewith you'll be able to stand all the wiles of the devil. And he told us something. He said, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. See, these spirits are organized. They are systemic. They are deliberate. They are well structured and programmed. They don't just act haphazardly. He said, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of the darkness of this world, and against spiritual wickedness in heavenly places. Principalities are creatures in the spirit realm who are princes, but they don't have territories. You see, when you study the Kedah of the spirit realm, you will find out something. That after Christ, you have thrones. After thrones, you have dominions. After dominions, you have principalities, and then you have powers. That is in Colossians chapter 1, verse 15 and 16. There are institutions that have been perverted. Have you gone to the academia? Students sleeping with lecturers, lecturers forcing students to sleep with them in order to give them grades. What will you do to recover such an institution? You need a wisdom that can bring that institution under kingdom surveillance, so that the will of God can find expression. Have you gone into the economic sector? Values of currency depreciating as though a metal is falling from an elevated platform. Investments that worth 2 billion 5 years ago, now worth only 10 million. An investment that is supposed to appreciate, because currency value has depreciated, the whole investment has depreciated. What can you do to salvage that kind of situation? You will need a wisdom. And so the third thing priesthood does is to fortify us with wisdom, fortify us with grace that can turn rotten situation into prospects that carry the ability to save and to bring hope to a generation. This is why when priesthood is going on, people are not just praying, people are not just knowing God, people are being fortified. Because out of the prison, a Joseph must rise. Out of Babylon, a Daniel must rise. Out of Egypt, a Moses must rise. But it will take intercession. And some of you looking at me here today, you may just become the Daniel of Kenya. You may just become the Joseph of Kenya. You may just become the Moses of Kenya. This is why we will not stop praying. Because it doesn't look like it yet, but we know that our Redeemer liveth. He said, I stand upon the rock to see what he will say to me. And he said, write the vision. He said, make it plain upon tables that he may run that readeth it. He said, do it tarries. He said, wait for it. It shall not tarry. It shall surely come to pass. I don't know what God has destined you for, but I came to speak to you tonight in the spirit and in the power of Moses, the one that brings people out of the pit. And I come to speak to you in the spirit of Joshua, the one that carries men to their promised land. Whatever it is that God has planted in you, whatever grace, whatever ordination, as I speak now by the spirit, the hand of God is upon you to awaken you to that ordination. It doesn't matter your gender. The limitations of your destiny may anchor on gender, but I come to you by a spirit that is eternal. Even the limitations of gender can be taken away. The limitations of education can be taken away. The limitations of minority of tribe can be taken away. Whatever ordination written concerning you, as you hear my voice tonight, let it become an activation of that ordination. I have entered the Holy of Holies. I have entered the covenant of Yahweh. I have entered the altar of Jerusalem to Yeshua, who is the word of God.